watching Gridiron Betting Insights. That's right, it's the GBI show here on QLTV. Tonight, we got a big show in store. We are going to break down the AFC West bet by bet. We're going to look at the futures market. We'll take a quick look at the week one lines, get you all caught up on all the storylines, everything that matters in this division that you need to know about so you can win yourself some money this 2020 season on the AFC West. The show tonight, of course, brought to you by BetQL.co. Use the promo code SANNON at BetQL.co. Save 20% on any subscription. They've got a ton of great data, help you beat the books in the NFL. That's BetQL.co. Promo code SANNON, SANNIN. Now, we'll start off in the AFC West. We'll start off with the key storylines in the division, get you all caught up because, again, it feels like about a decade has passed since the last football season ended. So we'll make sure you know everything you need to know, everything you need to think about for this upcoming season in the AFC West. We'll get you caught up there first. We'll start out with, of course, the defending champions, that being the Kansas City Chiefs. And, of course, the biggest storyline for them is can they repeat as champions? Patrick Mahomes, he got paid this offseason. Man, he is almost halfway to being a billionaire when this contract that he just signed plays out. Can he live up to that contract? How does it affect the rest of the Kansas City Chiefs? I think is going to be really the more interesting story because the recipe in the NFL is you got to do it with a cheap quarterback, at least for a part of your run at the top of the league. The Chiefs did that. Mahomes on his rookie contract. Everybody else on that roster is able to get paid. You're able to afford a lot of talent on both sides of the ball when you're not paying the quarterback position. Well, now that's done. You won your Super Bowl that way, but now Patrick Mahomes is, again, almost halfway to being a billionaire. He was able to buy a part of a baseball team. We'll get to Patrick Mahomes a little bit later, and sorry if this offends our Tuesday special. But how does that signing, or extension, I should say, affect the rest of the Chiefs? I will start to find out this season, I guess, in the AFC West. Elsewhere, we'll look at the Los Angeles Chargers, who, of course, are one of two teams that are switching stadiums in this division this year. And really the question for them is, will any fans show up at this one either? Because nobody was showing up at the StubHub Center. I don't know, it was the soccer stadium. Wherever the LA Galaxy played their games, that's where the LA Chargers were. Now they go to that beautiful new stadium that, I mean, it's kind of like a Giant stadium situation where they play the role of the Jets, where nobody really cares that they're there, but they are the second team there, just like the Jets are in Giant Stadium. Will that help the Chargers at all? Of course, this all happens in a season where there probably won't be any fans in the stands in the state of California due to the coronavirus. Of course, we'll keep an eye on that situation as it develops. But that's a big storyline for the Chargers. You also have to look at the fact that they're switching quarterbacks this year. Phillip Rivers, after about a billion years and a billion children in the great San Diego, Los Angeles area, he's going to Indianapolis. And now the Chargers, they're looking at Tyrod Taylor. They drafted Justin Herbert. There might be a quarterback competition between the two in training camp this year. Of course, no preseason to get that figured out. So it is likely that Tyrod Taylor, or Tyrod Taylor as he likes to be called, is going to be the starting man there. But of course, you never know. We'll see what happens there in Los Angeles. And of course, another team, not only changing stadiums, changing cities entirely, is the Las Vegas Raiders. I am very proud of myself for not calling them the Oakland Raiders there. They are the Las Vegas Raiders. How will that move affect things? Nevada's a state. You might have some fans in the stands. You're not sure. Will those fans be fans of the Raiders, or is this stadium going to become a tourist attraction? That remains to be seen. You leave one of the most dedicated areas in terms of fan bases in the NFL from Oakland going to Las Vegas. How does that affect the Raiders in 2020? Derek Carr might be playing for his job this season in Las Vegas. The Raiders bringing in Marcus Mariota during the offseason. Carr might be on his last legs. Can he prove himself as somebody who is worth keeping this job past this year? All signs pointing to no, but of course you never know. This is the NFL. And can the Raiders make the most of some pieces? You're looking at guys like Nelson Aguilar coming into this team from the Philadelphia Eagles, who Aguilar became more of a meme than a wide receiver last year. And Jason Witten, who he retired, he became a commentator, he unretired. Now he's in Oakland. Can he help them in any way? And of course, the Raiders, they came off of one of the roughest stretches of schedule in the NFL last season. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But things might be looking up, even though things are in typical Raiders fashion, just as disorganized as you'd like. We'll see what happens there in Las Vegas. And of course, the Denver Broncos, the question there, can Drew Lock make the leap into being a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL? He was decent at times last year, helped them win some games, surprisingly enough. But can he do it over a full season? The Broncos are trying to help him in every way that they can. They brought in Jerry Jeudy in the draft, who has drawn rave reviews in terms of what he's done so far as a pro. Not to mention, I mean, the guy has some of the greatest highlight videos you'll see of a wide receiver running routes, which to nerds like me, that's great. I love watching that. But will it translate on the field in the pros? We'll see what happens with Jerry Jeudy. And another question, can this defense step up to where it used to be? We'll hit you with a quick stat here. The Denver Broncos last year, they get a lot of credit for the defense. Their defense is called one of the best in the NFL. They have a great pass rush. But in terms of yards per play last season, they were even with the Chiefs and the Chargers. And the Chiefs, obviously, they're a defense that gets dragged for allowing points the way that they do. But Denver, in terms of a yards per play standpoint, not much better last year. Those were three middle of the pack defenses, despite what their reputations might tell you. So can the Broncos kind of get back to where they were previous seasons? Bradley Chubb nursing a knee injury during training camp. It shouldn't hold him out for any of the regular season, but something to keep an eye on, given that he has dealt with some injuries in the past. Can that defense step its game up and help Drew Lock along with Jerry Jeudy and the rest of that Broncos offense? Of course, if you want to get involved in the show tonight, feel free. Drop us a line. We've got live chats everywhere you look, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all that fun stuff here on the GBI show. Now, something that most season previews don't need to deal with is looking at opt-outs due to the coronavirus coming into a season. We did it last week with the NFC West. We're going to take a quick look at the opt-outs in the AFC West as well. And this is a division that is largely pretty lucky in terms of what it's dealt with when it comes to opt-outs. Really only one team has been hit in a meaningful way. That was the Kansas City Chiefs. They lost guard Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, a starting guard, I mean, a quality player who's going to miss the season for the Chiefs. Of course, he's somebody who was actually studied in the medical field, a brilliant mind, in addition to being an excellent guard on the offensive line. And the question now is, how does that impact the Chiefs as they look to protect a $500 million investment nearly in Patrick Mahomes? Elsewhere around the division, though, a lot of teams with a lot of luck in terms of their opt-out situation. You have the Chargers, no notable opt-outs there. Same thing goes for the Las Vegas Raiders. The Denver Broncos with a little something to deal with. They do lose offensive tackle Juwan James, and more so than just the loss of James, you deal with a loss to your offensive line depth, which for a team like the Broncos, who start an actual turnstile in Garrett Bowles, that's a problem. You're going to want as many options as you can possibly get your hands on at those offensive line positions. Not the case for the Broncos this year, as they do lose one tackle to the coronavirus. And of course, they're going to lose a lot of battles on the offensive line due to Garrett Bowles as well. Worth keeping an eye on, as again, this is a team that's trying to protect a relatively new quarterback who's trying to prove that he's the answer and prove John Elway right in that front office as they take a big chance on him here in the 2020 season. Now, we'll take a look at the odds to win the division, the conference, and the Super Bowl here on Gridiron Betting Insights. We'll start with the AFC West. And of course, the prohibitive favorites going into the season are the team that just won the Super Bowl, that being the Kansas City Chiefs. They're at minus 455. Got to lay $455 to win a hundo on the Chiefs to win the AFC West. Elsewhere in the division, you got the Chargers at 8-1, Denver at 9-1, and Las Vegas at 12-1. We'll hit you with some ideas on these odds later on in the show, but some interesting odds there in terms of the division, just because of how heavily favored the Chiefs are. The Chiefs are the favorites to win the Super Bowl, which we'll show you in just a second. But the fact that they are so heavily favored to win the division, I mean, it really does kind of sap the value out of what you would want in that team, in terms of picking a division winner. The fact that obviously they are the most talented team is one thing, but the fact that, I mean, you can't justify laying a price like that on the Chiefs. Now, to win the AFC, you're looking at the Chiefs again. They are the favorites to win the conference at 3-1. And as you get further down the list here, the Los Angeles Chargers at 22-1 odds, Denver at 25, and the Las Vegas Raiders at 30-1 odds. And I mean, obviously, if you're somebody who feels strongly about one of those three teams at the back of the pack, I mean, go nuts, because those are some potentially handsome payouts. But again, the Chargers are considered the team to beat in that AFC. And to win the Super Bowl, same thing. Chiefs, 6-1 odds to win it all. They are ahead of the Ravens. They're ahead of the Niners. They're ahead of all the other contending teams in the NFL to again lift the trophy. Now, it's worth pointing out here, it's been 15 years since a team has repeated. So you talk about value, and that's a very opaque term in sports betting parlance. I mean, a lot of people just use it to describe underdogs in any way, and that's not the case. When you're looking at value, you're looking at potential, you're looking at likelihood on top of those odds. Because, I mean, yeah, sure, you can get a team at 25-1 odds, but if they have no chance to do anything, there's no value there, even though it's a potentially handsome payout. Same thing goes for a favorite here at a plus price in the Chiefs. Yeah, sure, you're getting better, you're getting plus money on them to win the Super Bowl. But when it comes to the likelihood of them actually doing something that hasn't been done in a decade and a half, that kind of saps the value out of the equation, especially when you take into account that team that did that a decade and a half ago was 2004 and the 2005 Patriots. They were coached by Bill Belichick, one of the great minds in the history of any sport, let alone the game of football. The Chiefs, coached by Andy Reid, no disrespect to Andy Reid, but he's not Bill Belichick. And I think that's worth keeping in mind here as you look at the Chiefs in the futures market this season. Obviously, a lot to overcome for those other three teams. The Chargers 45-1, Denver 50-1, and Vegas at 66-1 to win the Super Bowl. Again, potentially handsome payouts there, but really very little value considering the considerable limitations on each of those rosters. The Chiefs, the team that a lot of people might be looking at 6-1 odds to repeat, and they might well go do it. But the problem there, again, something that hasn't been done in a really long time. You just paid Patrick Mahomes. That's going to impact the rest of the roster. 6-1 might not be enough to justify a selection there. Now, we'll look ahead to the week one lines. Obviously, we're getting ahead of ourselves talking about the Super Bowl. But you look at these week one lines in the AFC West, I apologize. And we'll start with the defending champions because they will start off the season in the Thursday night kickoff game. They will take on the Houston Texans in a mouth-watering matchup. They host that game at Arrowhead. It's a 10-point spread. The Chiefs, the favorites there. And again, another situation where a lot of bettors are thinking, that might be too many points, might be a little bit too much respect to pay to the Chiefs. 41% of the public on the Chiefs as of right now. We might see that number go up as we get a little closer to kickoff and some of the more casual recreational bettors start putting in their wagers for week one. But in terms of what you're looking at from the public now, they're saying that 10 might be a little bit too much to put on that Chiefs team. And I don't know that I necessarily agree with that sentiment. I mean, you look at this Chiefs team and what they did in that second half, especially against the Texans. I mean, they walked the ball up and down at will. It took, a block punt, some turnovers. I mean, it was a nightmare first quarter for the Chiefs. They still covered that. They still covered 10 points in that game. So, I mean, there's no reason to believe that they can't do it again. The question, of course, is will they? Elsewhere in the AFC West, you're looking at the Chargers as 3-point favorites. They are at Cincinnati against the Bengals in their week one matchup. 54% of the public right now putting their faith in the Los Angeles Chargers and Tyrod Taylor against a Bengals team that very well might be starting Joe Burrow there in week one. And that is a very interesting matchup because you have two teams that you really don't know what you're going to get offensively from either of them. And if I'm betting that game right now, I'm looking at Joey Bosa teeing it up against a rookie quarterback. And I'm getting a little bit excited, especially with Derwin James back in the picture in that secondary. for the Chargers. Could be a growing pain situation for Joe Burrow or whoever is under center in that game for the Bengals against the Chargers. Elsewhere in the AFC West, week one, you're looking at the Las Vegas Raiders, 1.5-point favorites at the Carolina Panthers in the first week of the season. And right now, you're looking at a Las Vegas team that is the most beloved in the public betting market heading into week one in this division. They're getting 68% of the public action against the Carolina Panthers. Of course, Carolina, they're going to be going out there with Teddy Bridgewater, presumably. Boy, I would love to see MVPJ, PJ Walker of Houston Roughnecks XFL fame, get some run there for the Carolina Panthers, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It looks like Teddy Bridgewater will be the guy for Carolina, and I don't know how I feel about laying points on the road with Derek Carr in week one. I mean, that's something that I'd have to look at a little bit closer as we get closer to the season. But the Carolina Panthers may need some time to gel with Bridgewater at quarterback. Of course, Joe Brady, the offensive genius there at LSU, going to be manning the offense there in Carolina this year as well. So there is definitely the potential for some growing pains there from a Panthers perspective, which could very well benefit the Las Vegas Raiders in this game. And just on a side note, anytime the Las Vegas Raiders are a picture of continuity in a game, it is officially troubling to me, given what a disoriented, disarray, disaster of a franchise that has been over the last few years. They can't even stay in the same city, let alone keep their roster the way it needs to be, keep their coaching staff the way it needs to be in recent years. But this time might work out in their favor. And finally, in the AFC West, you're looking at the Denver Broncos as a 1.5-point favorite at home against the Tennessee Titans. And this is what I like to call the Sergio Dip memorial spot on the schedule, the second game of the Monday night doubleheader on week one. Of course, we all remember our good friend Sergio Dip, the sideline reporter who he works for ESPN Deportes. And boy, I mean, they hung him out to dry in that broadcast a few years ago. I think it was in Denver, actually, against the Chargers, where, I mean, the guy, he couldn't get a sentence out. And boy, they just kept going to him, and there were delays in his headset. It was a nightmare for him. But anyway, that's why I call it the Sergio Dip memorial spot on the schedule. And it's kind of a nice spot for the Broncos here. You got a home team with a fan base that's got all night to get excited. I mean, that is the latest game on the schedule for the entire season, taking on a Tennessee team who they bring back Ryan Tannehill. Can he possibly live up to what he did last year? I mean, he was objectively one of the best quarterbacks in the league last season. Well, you're going to have Chubb and Von Miller chasing him around all night. And will Derrick Henry be enough on the ground to offset that? I don't know. It remains to be seen. But 51% of the public right now is on the Denver Broncos as they take on the Tennessee Titans in week one. Of course, all of this information, all the public betting percentages, you can get sharp betting percentages, you can get information on line movements, anything you want to know about the betting market in the NFL, you can get it from betql.co. Use promo code SAN and get 20% off any subscription on the site. You want to go for a week, you go for a week. You want to go for the annual package, you'll just save more money. You're only helping yourself, and you can save an additional 20% if you use promo code SANIN, SANIN, at betql.co. BetQL responsible for those public betting percentages you just heard and those week one lines. All of the lines you're going to hear on the show tonight came from DraftKings Sportsbook this afternoon. They are nice and up to date as we continue here on Gridiron Betting Insights, the GBI show here on QL TV. Now, every Tuesday, we're going to do something called Sorry If This Offends. And Sorry If This Offends is a weekly segment where I'm going to give you one spicy meatball of a take. I'm going to reach back, dig into the take library, and come up with my best take for the week. So this week, since we're doing the NFC West, I'm sorry if this offends, but I think Patrick Mahomes is going to go down as the greatest quarterback of all time. Now, I know this sounds like a reactionary take, given that he just won the Super Bowl, he just got paid nearly $500 million, and he just bought part of a Major League Baseball team. So I get it. This might sound reactionary. That position, the way Patrick Mahomes is playing it, he's reinventing what we're seeing on the field. He's combining mobility with accuracy, the likes of which you see from guys like Peyton Manning and things like that, but at three levels. He can throw a deep ball on a dime. He can throw an intermediate route accurately as well as the short routes. And it's not just his ability to complete these passes, it's the way in which he does it. It reminds me of the way Steph Curry plays basketball. He lacks the fear to fail. We see these quarterbacks in the NFL all the time. They like to take safe throws when they've got them. They're risk averse because turnovers in the NFL are obviously detrimental. But just like Steph Curry has no problem pulling up from the logo or throwing balls into baskets from the tunnel, Patrick Mahomes is the same way. He'll throw a ball 70 yards on the run. He'll throw a ball with his offhand. He's working on throwing the ball behind his back in practice. And boy, if he gets that going, I mean, just shut the league down. Just give him 10 Lombardis and shut the league down if he learns to throw behind his back. But Patrick Mahomes plays with a reckless abandon in the best way that I think other quarterbacks in the NFL need to adopt. From Patrick Mahomes, we haven't seen the ability to throw receivers open deep like this since Dante Culpepper was dunking on the NFL alongside Randy Moss with the Minnesota Vikings. We are talking about a talent here who not only made almost $500 million with his recent contract signing, but he's considered a bargain in the long run, given how great he can be and how the quarterback position is going to be paid in the future. If you could be a $500 million bargain, yeah, you're on your way to great things. And while Tom Brady may stack up 6 rings thanks to a Bill Belichick system and a whole bunch of game-winning field goals from Adam Vinatieri, Patrick Mahomes has not put his team in those positions yet. He is the one out there winning them games. He is the one out there making his receivers great, not the other way around, because you see that take all the time where, oh, it's because he has Tyreek Hill, it's because he has Travis Kelce. Look, they've added a new star on every year. Mecole Hardman was nobody until Patrick Mahomes was able to throw him a ball over the mountains in a way that would make Uncle Rico blush to get him open and let him utilize that speed deep down the field. Patrick Mahomes, he is going to go down as the greatest quarterback of all time, and I'm sorry if this offends. Now let's take a look at the futures market in the AFC West here as we wind things down on the GBI show here on a Tuesday. Love doing this show on a night like this, by the way, because no matter what happens, this show could be the worst show that I've ever done. And my day could not have possibly gone worse than the Milwaukee Bucks today against the Orlando Magic. Love a show like this. No pressure whatsoever. But we'll look at the futures market here in the AFC West, and we'll start with the Los Angeles Chargers. And I like a few things about this Chargers team in the futures market. And I think the first one that you have to look at is the Chargers to win this division at 8-1 odds. I know the Chiefs are a better team. The Chiefs have a better quarterback. But at 8-1, you're looking at a team with a solid defense, again, on equal footing in terms of yards per play to the Chiefs, but a team that might be better at the quarterback position than they were last year, and people aren't going to realize that. Phillip Rivers, obviously at his ceiling, a very good quarterback in the AFC West for many years, but his turnover problem was disastrous for that Chargers team. How many times late in games did Phillip Rivers throw an interception that broke the backs of that team when they needed a touchdown or they needed a scoring drive late? Tyrod Taylor, he's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. A guy got ran out of Buffalo for Josh Allen, who cannot complete a deep ball at this point in his career. Got ran out of Cleveland for Baker Mayfield, who has not been consistent in any way, shape, or form. And let's face it, he's been brought in here in Los Angeles to get run out of town by Justin Herbert when he's ready to go. This is not a long-term engagement, but Tyrod Taylor, Yeah, they're going to punt the ball a bunch, but they're going to play defense. They have Derwin James back, like I said earlier. They have Joey Bosa screaming at quarterbacks from the edge. And I think Tyrod Taylor is going to just keep them in games. He's going to be that game manager that, again, he's not going to be in the Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT rant section of the quarterback hierarchy, but he's going to be fine. And they have receivers that are going to make him better than he's been at other destinations in which he's played. I think the Chargers have a chance at 8-1 odds to win that division. If you don't have the guts, if you don't have the gumption to play that, I also like them. It's a little juiced at DraftKings as of today, but over 7.5 wins for the Los Angeles Chargers. Again, this is one of the best rosters in the NFL, everywhere but the quarterback position. I mean, the running back spot, they're going to be solid. Not going to be what they were when Melvin Gordon was at his best, but they're going to be all right. You have Hunter Henry back, at least temporarily. I mean, the guy goes down every year, but at least on paper, you've got him. You've still got some weapons in the receiving game, and that defense does bring it, at least as well as the other teams in that division. I think over 7.5 wins, there is no way you look at that roster in Los Angeles and you say that's a sub 500 team as far as I'm concerned. Also, to me, we're taking a shot at, I didn't put it on the screen here, but I do think it is worth taking a shot at Joey Bosa to win the Defensive Player of the Year award at 20-1 odds. If he can stay healthy, you know he's going to get after the quarterback. And if this Chargers team can outperform expectations with him playing a key role, having that in your back pocket at 20-1 odds, it's worth a go as far as I'm concerned. Now, elsewhere in the futures market, we will take a look at one shot here for the Kansas City Chiefs. Not going to be taking them on the division market or the Super Bowl market or anything like that. But hear me out here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the rookie running back out of LSU, to get over 7.5 rushing touchdowns this season, minus 110 at DraftKings earlier today. And I like this one a lot by virtue of how little there is in terms of other options in the running game this season for the Chiefs. Obviously, Damian Williams no longer a part of the equation. He opted out because of COVID-19. No Shady McCoy anymore. He's going to try and ring chase in Tampa Bay. And you're looking at the backup. It's DeAndre Washington there for the Chiefs. I believe he spent some time with the Raiders not long ago. Either way, not a very impactful player. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's going to get a lot of the touches for this Chiefs team in the ground game. And again, this is a team that moves the ball. They force the ball downfield. You're going to be dealing with pass interference penalties down the field. And if you get any of those at the 1-yard line, it's going to be Edwards-Helaire toting the rock on the goal line. And I mean, even without pass interference penalties, just factoring in what an explosive offense you're looking at, they are going to have some goal line looks. Edwards-Helaire is going to get a ton of carries for this team when they do choose to run the ball. And I think that equals over 7.5 touchdowns on the season. Elsewhere for the Chiefs, I do think Patrick Mahomes is the favorite in terms of his odds to throw for the most touchdown passes this season. He's at 4-1 odds. Now, again, this is a team without a ton of options in the running game. This is a team with Andy Reid, who does like to throw the ball disproportionately compared to a lot of other teams in the league. I think Mahomes, again, you're not getting tremendous odds compared to what you are around the rest of the league. But if you compare him to the other elite quarterbacks, Drew Brees, I don't see keeping up the production. Tom Brady, listen, I think he's washed. Spoiler alert for the NFC South preview. I think Tom Brady is washed at this point. And again, Aaron Rodgers didn't impress me last year. I think 4-1 odds with Patrick Mahomes to throw the most passing touchdowns. There is a little bit of value there, even if it comes out of favor at 4-1. And finally, in the AFC West, looking at the futures market, I think the Denver Broncos are poised to finish in last place in this division. It is at plus 185 at DraftKings Sportsbook earlier today. And let me tell you why I think this way. I think it's a two-team race for last place in this division because, like I said, I think the Chargers are a better team than a lot of people expect coming into this season. So again, you're not going to take them to finish last. You're not going to take the Chiefs to finish last. That leaves Vegas, and that leaves the Broncos. Now, Vegas last season had one of the most interesting stretches of schedule in the NFL. They had 5 straight games where they did not play in Oakland. They played 2 road games, followed by a game in London, which counted as a home game. They played at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium there in London. And then they came back and played 2 more road games. They spent a full 5 games worth of their schedule away from home in one time. That is not going to be the case again this season. And they still finished 7-9 despite all of that. You have a quarterback playing for his job and a team that has a more favorable schedule setup than they did last season in the Raiders. Meanwhile, you have a Denver team that, yes, they always have a home field advantage playing at a mile high. But can Bradley Chubb stay healthy and can Drew Lock continue to improve? I didn't see enough from him last year to justify not taking this plus price when the Vegas Raiders have some favorable circumstances set up for them this coming season. So that's my take on the AFC West. Of course, I want to thank everybody for tuning in this week to the GBI show. Next week, I'm sorry, not next week, 2 days from now. 2 days from now, we're Tuesday and Thursday, people. Thursday, we are going to head up north, and we're going to take a look at the NFC North. We'll do a full preview of that division, get you all the storylines you need to know. We'll get you some futures picks, and we will play Trust Me, Don't Trust Me, our Thursday staple here on the GBI show. Can't wait to bring it to you. Until then, this is Jay Sannon signing off. We'll see you.